It was a Sunday morning. The men aboard the USS Arizona were having breakfast. Some were writing letters home. Others were still asleep. None of them knew. They had less than 1 hour to live. 7:55 a.m. 353 Japanese aircraft appeared over Pearl Harbor. In the next 110 minutes, 2,403 Americans were killed. 8 battleships destroyed or damaged. The United States would never be the same again. But this attack didn't come out of nowhere. For 10 years, Japan had been expanding across Asia. China, Korea, Indochina. Tokyo wanted an empire, and nothing was going to stop them. The United States saw the threat. By 1941, America had cut off all oil exports to Japan. No oil meant no war machine. Japan faced a choice: back down or strike first. Admiral Yamamoto chose to strike first. That plan was bold. Some called it brilliant. Others called it reckless. 6 aircraft carriers, 420 planes, a strike force sailing in silence across 3,400 miles of open ocean. Their target, the American Pacific Fleet. At Pearl Harbor. If Japan destroyed the U.S. fleet in a single blow, America would have no choice but to negotiate. That was the plan. It would become one of the greatest miscalculations in military history. December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor. It was a peaceful Sunday morning on the Hawaiian island of Oahu. The U.S. Pacific Fleet was docked in neat rows along Battleship Row. Some officers had gone ashore to visit their families. If you want to discover more truths about military history, subscribe to our channel right now. Don't forget to like this video. It helps us a lot to produce more high-quality documentaries. And please, leave a comment below sharing your opinions or a story about veterans in your family. Thanks for watching. At 7:02 a.m., 2 radar operators spotted something unusual. A massive formation of aircraft approaching fast. They reported it up the chain of command. The officer on duty told them not to worry. He assumed it was American planes coming in from the mainland. He was wrong. At 7:53 a.m., Japanese Commander Mitsuo Fuchida sent the signal. Tora, Tora, Tora. Complete surprise had been achieved. the first wave of 183 aircraft dove toward the harbor. Battleships, airfields, fuel depots, dry docks, everything was a target. Sailor Lauren Bruner was 21 years old. He had just finished breakfast aboard the USS Arizona. That night, he had a date with his girl. He never made it. When the bomb hit, the explosion threw him across the deck. He survived. 1,177 of his shipmates did not. Let's take a moment. Japan had been planning this attack for months. The Americans had warning signs. They didn't connect. And on a quiet Sunday morning, the most powerful naval base in the Pacific was caught completely off guard. Of all the ships in Pearl Harbor, none suffered more than the USS Arizona. She was 608 feet long. She carried 1,512 men. At 8:06 a.m., a single Japanese bomb pierced her forward deck and reached her ammunition magazine. The explosion was catastrophic. The Arizona was lifted 30 to 40 feet out of the water. A fireball rose hundreds of feet into the sky. She sank in 9 minutes. 1,177 sailors and Marines died in those 9 minutes. Half of all American deaths at Pearl Harbor on a single ship. Lou Conter was one of the survivors. He was 20 years old. For the rest of his life, he returned to Pearl Harbor every December 7th to stand above the wreck of the Arizona, to remember the men still entombed below. Lou Conter died in 2024. He was 102 years old. We are just scratching the surface of this incredible history. If you are enjoying this documentary, take a brief moment right now to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Your support is what allows us to keep digging into these forgotten archives. Japan had achieved tactical surprise, but they made one critical mistake. The American aircraft carriers were not in port that day. USS Enterprise, USS Lexington, USS Saratoga. All three were at sea. And by 1941, carriers had replaced battleships as the dominant weapon of naval war. Japan also failed to destroy Pearl Harbor's fuel storage. 4.5 million barrels of oil sat untouched. Without that oil, the Pacific Fleet would have been paralyzed for months. Japan chose not to strike it. That decision would haunt them for the rest of the war. December 8th, 1941. President Franklin D. Roosevelt stood before Congress. He had one thing to say. Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States declared war on Japan. Only one member of Congress voted against it. Within days, Germany and Italy declared war on America. A nation that had tried to stay out of the conflict was now at war on two fronts: in Europe, in the Pacific. The sleeping giant had finally been awakened. Pearl Harbor changed everything. In one morning, America lost 2,403 lives, 8 battleships, 188 aircraft. But it did not lose the war, because the carriers survived, because the oil survived, and because a nation that had been asleep woke up angry. Japan wanted to cripple America. Instead, they united it. 4 years later, Japan would sign its unconditional surrender aboard an American battleship, the USS Missouri, in Tokyo Bay. The war that began at Pearl Harbor ended exactly where Japan had tried to prevent: American dominance of the Pacific. Here's a question for you. If Japan had destroyed the American aircraft carriers at Pearl Harbor, would the United States still have won the war? Leave your answer below. Yes or no? And if you want to know what happened next, the Battle of Midway is coming next week. Thank you so much for traveling back in time with us today. If this story moved you, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell so you never miss our next historic journey. Before you go, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Your interaction keeps this history alive. Until next time, this is Dr. Vance, signing off.